They say Kang Dae-young's face was carved from ice. 7 long years. And not a single person, not his enemies begging for mercy, not the women who warmed his bed, not even his own mother, had seen this man crack a smile. After his father died, the most feared Korean mafia boss in America had forgotten how to smile. Then came the night that changed everything. Through the rain-soaked streets of Atlanta, a beautiful black girl wearing a torn and muddy wedding dress ran in barefoot like her life depended on it. Running from an arranged marriage. Running from a prison dressed in promises. She crashed through his club's doors, wild-eyed and desperate, a gun in her shaking hands. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She looked Dae-young dead in the eye and said, "Help me disappear, or I'll make sure we both go down." And for the first time in 7 years, Kang Dae-young smiled. That was when everything went south. If you're already hooked, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to take you on a wild ride. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever wanted to run from your own life? Now, let's get into it. The rain came down in sheets over Atlanta's warehouse district, turning the streets into black mirrors that reflected the neon signs of after-hours establishments. The Lotus Club sat like a jewel among the industrial decay, exclusive, dangerous, and owned by the most powerful Korean crime family on the East Coast. Zanelle Amati had exactly 4 minutes before they found her. Her bare feet slapped against the wet pavement, the designer wedding dress, $12,000 of ivory silk in her mother's broken dreams, now ripped and muddy, clinging to her dark skin like a shroud. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought they might crack. Behind her, car engines roared to life. Her fiancé's men. Victor Nandi didn't accept embarrassment, and running from their wedding in front of 300 guests. That was more than embarrassment. That was war. Zanelle's fingers tightened around the gun she'd stolen from her father's study. She'd never fired a weapon in her life, but they didn't need to know that. The Lotus Club's main entrance was impossible, 2 suited guards who looked like they ate problems for breakfast. But the alley beside it. Zanelle made a split-second decision and ran. Her Yale law degree hadn't prepared her for this. Neither had growing up as the precious daughter of Nigerian oil magnate Christopher Amati. But desperation made animals of us all. She hit the back door with her full weight. It burst open. And suddenly, she was in a different world. Red light bathed everything. Velvet and leather. The smell of expensive whiskey and danger. And standing in the center of the private room, surrounded by men in suits that cost more than cars, was him. Kang Dae-young. She'd seen his photo in her father's files, heard the whispered warnings. The ghost of Atlanta, they called him. 32 years old and already a legend in the criminal underworld. The man who'd consolidated 3 rival Korean gangs under one banner. The man who made problems disappear. But the photos hadn't captured this. He stood 6'2", lean muscle in a black Tom Ford suit, his face so beautiful it almost hurt to look at, high cheekbones, full lips, and eyes like obsidian that seemed to see straight through her soul. His dark hair was pushed back carelessly, and there was something so controlled about his stillness that it made every other man in the room look like they were moving in fast forward. And he never smiled. Everyone knew that. Kang Dae-young's smile had died with his father. Until now. The moment Zanelle burst through that door, gun raised, wedding dress torn, eyes blazing with the kind of desperation that makes people either break or become something dangerous, his lips curved. Just slightly. A ghost of amusement that made him look almost human. "Well," he said, his voice like smoke and whiskey, barely accented. "This is new." His men moved immediately, reaching for weapons, but Dae-young raised one hand. They froze. Zanelle's gun hand shook, but she kept it level. Pointed at him. "I need help." Clearly. His dark eyes traveled over her, not leering, assessing. Reading her like a book. Runaway bride? Runaway prisoner? Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "My father sold me to Victor Nandi to settle a business deal. I'm not merchandise." Something flickered in those black eyes. Recognition. Respect. Victor Nandi, Dae-young repeated, tasting the name. The Nandi family. Nigerian Mafia. Arms dealing, drug trafficking, human smuggling. He tilted his head. You aimed high for your rebellion, princess. Do you know where you are? The Lotus Club. Your territory. Zanel stepped further into the room, dripping rainwater and defiance. I know exactly who you are, Kang Dae-young. And I know you hate the Nandi family because they tried to push into your territory last year. You killed 3 of Victor's cousins. The room went deadly silent. One of Dae-young's men, a stocky man with a scar across his jaw, laughed harshly. Sang-name. This bitch has a death wish. Yong-ho. Dae-young's voice didn't rise, but the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Watch your mouth, or I'll cut out your tongue. Yong-ho stepped back immediately, bowing his head. Dae-young's attention returned to Zanel, and this time, the almost smile was definitely there. You've done your homework. I'm not just some spoiled rich girl, Zanel said. I'm a lawyer. And I know things about the Nandi family, their routes, their connections, their weaknesses. Information that could be valuable. To the right person. And what do you want in return for this information? Protection. A new identity. Enough money to disappear. Her voice didn't waver. Or I can walk out that door and let Victor's men find me. And when they torture me for running, I'll tell them everything I know about you too. Which door do you think works better for both of us? For a long moment, Dae-young just stared at her. Then he did something that made his entire crew stiffen in shock. He laughed. Not loud. Not long. Just a brief, genuine sound of amusement that transformed his face from beautiful to absolutely devastating. You walked into a tiger's den and threatened the tiger, he said, still smiling that dangerous smile. Either you're the bravest woman I've ever met, or the most foolish. Can't I be both? That smile widened. Just a fraction. Put the gun down, Zanel Amadi. If I wanted you dead, you would have died the moment you touched my door. She blinked. You know my name. I know everyone who matters in Atlanta's underworld. Your father Christopher does business with Victor's family. And you. His eyes traveled over her again, slower this time. You were supposed to be Victor's prize. His beautiful, educated, perfect wife. The respectable face for his dirty empire. I'm nobody's prize. No, Dae-young agreed, something shifting in his expression. I don't think you are. Outside, car doors slammed. Shouting in Igbo, Victor's men. Zanel's grip tightened on the gun. They're here. Dae-young straightened, buttoning his suit jacket with calm precision. Yong-ho. Min-jun, show Miss Amadi to the upstairs office. Make sure she's comfortable. His eyes locked with Zanel's. I'll handle your welcoming committee. Why are you helping me? That smile again. Dangerous. Intrigued. Because I haven't been this entertained in 7 years. And because. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. I want to see what a woman brave enough to threaten me is capable of. Then he walked past her, toward the back door where Victor's men were pounding, and Zanel saw it, the transformation from human to predator. The smile vanished. The warmth in his eyes iced over. By the time he opened that door, Kang Dae-young was exactly what the rumors promised. A ghost. A killer. A man who felt nothing. But for just a moment, when he'd looked at her, he'd smiled. The office upstairs was all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta's glittering skyline. Zanel paced like a caged animal, the wedding dress leaving wet tracks on the expensive carpet. Yong-ho and Min-jun stood guard at the door, silent and deadly. Below, she heard raised voices. A gunshot. Then, nothing. 10 minutes later, Dae-young walked back in, not a hair out of place. There was blood on his knuckles. Is he dead? Zanel asked quietly. Victor? No. His men. 2 are in the hospital. 1 is in the river. Dae-young moved to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. I sent Victor a message. You're under my protection now. Touching you means going to war with the Kong family. He offered her a glass. Zanel took it with shaking hands and drank. The liquor burned, grounding her. War, she repeated. You'd start a war with the Nandi family, for me. For the information you promised. Dae-young settled into the chair behind his desk, studying her with those unreadable eyes. And because Victor insulted me by bringing his little manhunt into my territory. I can't let that disrespect slide. So this is about your ego. This is about power. Respect. Control. He swirled his whiskey. The same things you were fighting for when you ran. We're not so different, you and I. Zanel laughed bitterly. I'm nothing like you. I don't kill people. No. You just walked in here ready to die or start a war to save yourself. That takes a different kind of killing instinct. He leaned forward, elbows on his desk. Tell me about Victor's operation. Prove you're worth the trouble you've brought to my door. For the next hour, Zanel told him everything. The shipping routes her father had mentioned at dinner parties. The government officials on Victor's payroll. The warehouse in Savannah where they stored illegal weapons. The money laundering through Nigerian churches. Dae-young listened in silence, his expression never changing, but she could see his mind working, calculating, strategizing, weaponizing her information. When she finished, he stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. Victor will come for you, he said quietly. Not today. Not tomorrow. But he won't let this go. You humiliated him. And men like us, we don't forgive humiliation. Men like you, Zanel corrected. I'm not part of this world. He turned, and in the city lights, his face was half shadow, half illumination. You are now. The moment you walked through my door, you chose a side. You can't go back to your old life. Your family will disown you for shaming them. Your father's business relationship with the Nandis is destroyed. And Victor will hunt you until one of you is dead. The weight of it hit her then. What she'd done. What she'd lost. So what now, she whispered. I'm just, trapped here. Not trapped. Dae-young moved closer, and Zanel felt her breath catch. He was so controlled, so contained, but there was something magnetic about him that pulled like gravity. I'm offering you a deal. What kind of deal? Work for me. You're a lawyer. I need someone smart, educated, who understands both the American legal system and the African immigrant community. Someone who can move in high society without raising suspicion. His eyes burned into hers. Be my consultant. Help me expand my operations. In return, I'll give you protection, money, and something you've never had before. What's that? Freedom. Okay, y'all, I need to know, are we trusting Dae-young, or is Zanel making a deal with the devil? Comment Team Dae-young or Team Run. And if you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because this story is about to get even more intense. Zanel lived in Dae-young's penthouse for the first week. Not with him, he had a private wing that might as well have been on another planet for how rarely she saw him. But in the guest suite that was nicer than anywhere she'd ever lived, with 24-hour security and a view that made Atlanta look like a kingdom of lights. Mrs. Choi, an older Korean woman who served as the penthouse's manager, brought her clothes that actually fit, expensive, professional outfits that made her look like the lawyer she trained to be. Not the runaway bride in a torn dress. Boss wants you comfortable, Mrs. Choi said in accented English, laying out a black Armani suit. Important meeting today. With who? He tells you himself. Dae-young's operation was bigger than Zanel had imagined. The Lotus Club was just the visible tip, beneath it ran an empire of nightclubs, restaurants, real estate holdings, import, export businesses, and technology startups. All legitimate on the surface. All generating millions in cash that needed laundering. And beneath even that, the real business, protection rackets, illegal gambling, drug distribution, and enforcement. When Dae-young finally called for her, it was in his downtown office, a glass tower in Atlanta's financial district, 30 stories up, with his name on the building. He sat behind a massive desk, 3 computer monitors showing stock tickers and security feeds. He'd shed his jacket, working in a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing surprisingly muscular forearms. "Sit," he said without looking up. Zanel sat, spine straight, refusing to be intimidated. "The Nandi family has frozen your father's assets in retaliation for your escape," Dae-young said, still typing. "They're also spreading rumors that you're mentally unstable. Drug addicted. That's why you ran." Pain lanced through Zanel's chest. "My father, is he okay?" Angry. Humiliated. "He's publicly disowned you to save face with Victor." Now Dae-young looked up, and his expression was unreadable. "You have no family anymore, Zanel. Only what you build here." She swallowed hard. She'd expected this, but hearing it still felt like a death. "I have a job for you," Dae-young continued. "There's a city council vote next week on rezoning West Side properties. If it passes, the land values triple. I own 6 buildings in that zone through shell companies. You want me to bribe city officials? I want you to negotiate with city officials. Legally. You're good at reading people, finding leverage. You proved that when you walked into my club and knew exactly which threats would work on me." A hint of that smile. "Consider this your test. And if I fail? Then you're not as useful as I thought. And I don't keep useless things." It should have scared her. Instead, it lit something competitive in Zanel's chest. "I'll need access to the council members' files. Financial records, family information, anything that gives me an angle. Min Jun will provide everything." Dae-young stood, buttoning his cuffs with precise movements. "We leave in an hour. You're coming with me to meet a potential partner. I want you to observe, learn how these negotiations work." "Where are we going?" "To meet the Russians." The meeting was in a private room at one of Atlanta's most exclusive steakhouses. 3 Russian men in expensive suits, all of them looking at Zanel like she was either a curiosity or an insult, a black woman in a Korean Mafia boss's inner circle. But Dae-young's hand at the small of her back, barely touching but unmistakably possessive, made his message clear: she was under his protection. "This is Miss Amati," he introduced smoothly, his business smile nothing like the real one Zanel had glimpsed that first night. "My new legal consultant." Dmitry Volkov, the lead Russian, raised an eyebrow. "You're expanding your team, Kong." "I'm expanding my empire. The question is whether you want to be part of it." Dae-young sat, and Zanel took the chair beside him. "You want access to my distribution network in the South. I want your connections in Eastern Europe. A partnership benefits us both." The negotiation was a dance, threats disguised as compliments, promises laced with warnings. Zanel watched Dae-young work, fascinated. He was brilliant. Every word calculated. Every pause strategic. He gave nothing away, but somehow made Dmitry feel like they were equals when clearly, they weren't. By the end, they'd agreed to a trial partnership. As they stood to leave, Dmitry looked at Zanel directly for the first time. "The Nandi family is offering $1 million for information on your location," he said casually. "Victor is very motivated to get his bride back." Zanel's blood ran cold. "And?" Dae-young's voice could have cut glass. "And I'm telling you as a courtesy. Others might not be so professional." Dmitry smiled. "Keep your pretty consultant close, Khan. Many people would kill for $1 million. In the car afterward, Zanel couldn't stop shaking. $1 million, she whispered. "Dae-young, maybe I should." "No." His hand covered hers, warm and solid. The first time he'd touched her with something other than calculated possession. Nobody takes what's mine. Not for 1 million. Not for 10 million. I'm not yours. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something dangerous and possessive in those dark eyes. Aren't you? Over the next month, Zanel stopped being a guest and became something else. An asset. A weapon. A partner, in the strangest sense. She secured the city council vote, not through bribes, but by finding out that one council member's son needed a job, another wanted his mistress hired at a Kong-owned company, and a third just needed someone to actually listen to his concerns about community development. Dae-young made each thing happen, and the vote passed unanimously. You're good at this, Dae-young told her afterward, and the approval in his voice felt better than it should have. She started attending more meetings. Sitting in on negotiations. Offering insights that Dae-young actually used. His men stopped looking at her like an outsider and started nodding in respect. And slowly, carefully, she started seeing cracks in Kang Dae-young's frozen exterior. The way he called his mother every Sunday morning in Korean, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. The way he had a bookshelf in his office filled with poetry, Korean, English, Japanese, pages worn from rereading. The way he watched her sometimes when he thought she wasn't looking, something hungry and confused in his eyes. It was Mrs. Choi who finally told her the story. Boss's father was killed 7 years ago, the older woman said quietly, folding laundry in the penthouse. Rival gang. They tortured him, made young Dae-young watch. He was 25. Just a boy, really. Zanel's heart clenched. That's horrible. After, Dae-young hunted every man involved. Took him 2 years, but he found them all. Made them pay. Mrs. Choi's hands stilled. But something died in him too. The boy who laughed, who smiled, who loved music and art, gone. Only the ghost left. Until? Mrs. Choi looked at her meaningfully. Until you. First time in 7 years I hear him laugh. See him smile. You make him remember he's human. That night, Zanel couldn't sleep. She wandered the penthouse, ending up in the living room where she found Dae-young standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the city. Can't sleep, he asked without turning. Too much on my mind. Join the club. He gestured to the bottle. Drink? They sat together on the leather couch, the city lights painting them in shades of gold and shadow. For a while, neither spoke. Mrs. Choi told me about your father, Zanel said finally. I'm sorry. Dae-young's jaw tightened. Don't pity me. I don't. I'm just, sorry you had to become this. She gestured at him. The ghost. The machine. Whatever you call it when you shut down everything human. This is what survival looks like in my world. Emotion is weakness. Love is a weapon people use against you. He looked at her, and in the dim light, he looked younger. Tired. You'll learn that too, eventually. No, Zanel said softly. I won't. Because surviving isn't the same as living. And I didn't run from one prison just to lock myself in another. Something flickered in his eyes. You think I'm in prison? I think you built yours out of ice and called it armor. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and touched her face, just his fingertips against her cheek, feather-light, like he was testing if she was real. You're dangerous, he whispered. Why? Because when I'm with you, I remember what it felt like to be human. And that's the most dangerous thing in my world. Zanel's breath caught. The air between them electrified, charged with something that had been building since that first night. She should pull away. This was her boss. Her protector. A criminal. A killer. But instead, she leaned into his touch. Dae-young. He stood abruptly, putting distance between them. You should sleep. We have a meeting tomorrow with the City Planning Commission. Are you always going to run when things get real? He turned, and the look on his face was almost angry. I'm keeping you alive, Zanel. Victor hasn't forgotten you. There are bounties, hunters, people who would gut you for that $1 million reward. The only thing protecting you is my name and my reputation. If I lose focus, if I let myself feel. He stopped, jaw clenched. You die. That's what happens when I let people in. They die. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. Death isn't fair. This world we're in. He laughed harshly. It's the furthest thing from fair. So yes, I'm going to run. I'm going to keep you at arm's length. Because the alternative is caring about you, and I can't afford to care about anyone. He walked away, disappearing into his private wing, leaving Zanelle alone with her racing heart and the imprint of his touch still burning on her skin. The attack came 3 weeks later. Zanelle was leaving a cafe in Midtown, a rare moment alone, since Dae-young had been called away on emergency business and she'd convinced her usual security detail she'd be fine for 1 hour. She wasn't. They came from a panel van, 3 men, moving fast. One grabbed her arm, another reached for her mouth to silence her scream. And then there was an explosion of violence. Dae-young appeared like an avenging angel, moving with deadly precision. He broke the first man's arm with a sickening crack. Put the second one through a car window. Had the third on the ground with a gun to his head before Zanelle could even process what was happening. Who sent you? Dae-young's voice was death itself. V. Victor Nandi, the man gasped. Said to bring the girl back alive. Said he'd pay double. Dae-young pulled the trigger. The sound echoed in the suddenly silent street. Then he turned to Zanelle, blood splattered on his shirt, and his eyes were wild, not cold, not controlled, but burning. Get in the car. Now. The drive back to the penthouse was silent. Dae-young's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel, his jaw so tight Zanelle thought it might crack. Inside, he exploded. What the fuck were you thinking? He roared, the first time she'd ever heard him raise his voice. Going out alone. After everything I told you about the bounty. I was gone for an hour. Zanelle shot back, her own fear turning to anger. I can't live in a cage, Dae-young. You'll live in a cage if it keeps you alive. He ran his hands through his hair, and she realized he was shaking. Do you understand what would have happened if I'd been 5 minutes later? Victor would have you. He'd punish you for running, probably in ways that would make you beg for death, and I would. He stopped, breathing hard. You would what? I would burn the entire city down to get you back, he said, voice raw. I would start a war that would cost hundreds of lives. I would destroy everything I've built. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped being a useful asset and became. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Zanelle crossed the space between them, grabbed his blood-stained shirt, and pulled him down to her. The kiss was explosive. 7 weeks of tension, denial, and desperate wanting crashing together. Dae-young made a sound like a man drowning, and then his hands were in her hair, on her waist, pulling her closer like he could merge their bodies into one. This is a mistake, he gasped against her mouth. I don't care. I'm going to ruin you. Then ruin me. He did. They barely made it to his bedroom, the private sanctuary he'd never let her enter. And when they came together, it wasn't gentle or sweet. It was desperate, claiming, 2 people who'd been holding back finally letting go. Afterward, they lay tangled in his sheets, Zanelle's dark skin against his lighter tone, both breathing hard. I told myself I wouldn't do this, Dae-young said quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on her spine. That I'd keep you at a distance. How's that working out? A huff that might have been a laugh. Terribly. Zanelle propped herself up to look at him. In the aftermath, with his defenses down, he looked almost vulnerable. What are we doing, Dae-young? Something dangerous. Something probably stupid. He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. But I'm tired of being a ghost. You make me feel alive again. And I'm too selfish to let that go. Even if it puts me in danger. I'll protect you. Whatever it takes. You can't control everything. Watch me. Victor's response to the failed kidnapping was swift and brutal. 3 of Dae-young's warehouses burned within a week. 2 of his men ended up in the hospital. A shipment worth $2 million was intercepted by the FBI, clearly tipped off. The Nandi family wanted war. And they were going to get it. We need to hit back, Yong-ho insisted during an emergency meeting. Show them we're not weak. We will, Dae-young said calmly, studying a map of Atlanta with red pins marking Nandi territory. But we're going to be smart about it. Zanel, you know Victor. How does he think? All eyes turned to her. A month ago, this would have terrified her. Now, sitting at Dae-young's right hand, she felt a dark thrill of power. Victor's ego is his weakness, she said. He needs to be seen as powerful, in control. That's why my running hurt him so much, it made him look weak in front of his family and allies. So we attack his reputation, Min-jun suggested. No. We make him attack himself. Zanel leaned forward, an idea forming. I know where he keeps his financial records. Physical copies, old school, because his father didn't trust technology. If we could get them, leak them to his rivals, show that he's been skimming from family accounts. Dae-young's eyes gleamed. They'd tear him apart from the inside. It's suicide, Yong-ho protested. His compound is a fortress. Not if someone he trusts lets us in. Zanel's heart pounded. My father. He still has access to Victor's inner circle. If I could convince him to help. Your father disowned you, Dae-young said carefully. He did it to save face. But he's my father. And he's a good man trapped in a bad situation. She looked at Dae-young. Let me try. The meeting with Christopher Amati was arranged in a neutral location, a church in a quiet neighborhood, just Zanel and her father, with Dae-young's security watching from a distance. Her father looked older. Tired. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. Zanel. Papa. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry, but seeing him broke something in her. I'm sorry I embarrassed you. You're my daughter. My precious girl. He pulled her into his arms. I thought I was protecting you. Victor seemed like a good match, wealthy, powerful, from a good family. I didn't know. I didn't see what he really was until you ran. What do you mean? Christopher's face darkened. After you disappeared, he showed his true colors. The threats, the violence. He's a monster, Zanel. And I sold you to him like cattle. His voice broke. I will never forgive myself. Then help me, Zanel said urgently. Help me stop him. She told him the plan. Watched her father's face cycle through shock, fear, and finally, determination. This is dangerous, he said. If Victor finds out I betrayed him, Dae-young will protect you. Both of us. But I need you to trust me, Papa. Christopher looked at his daughter, not the sheltered princess he'd raised, but the strong woman she'd become. When did you grow so fierce? When I realized I had something worth fighting for. My freedom. My life. And. She hesitated. Someone who sees me as more than just a valuable pawn. This Korean gangster. You love him. Zanel's breath caught. Did she? I don't know. But he makes me feel alive. He makes me feel like I matter for who I am, not what I represent. Christopher sighed. Your mother would have liked him, I think. She always said you needed someone who could match your fire. He squeezed her hand. I'll help you. Tell me what to do. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Christopher would visit Victor under the pretense of trying to negotiate Zanel's return. While they talked, he'd leave his briefcase, equipped with sophisticated listening devices and a digital copier, in Victor's study for just a moment, while using the bathroom. 20 minutes. That's all Dae-young's tech team needed to copy every file in Victor's safe. Zanelle watched from the surveillance van parked 3 blocks away, her heart in her throat, Dae-young's hand steady on her shoulder. He's in the study, Min-jun reported, watching the camera feeds. Victor's with him. They're talking. Christopher's voice came through the speakers. I just want my daughter back safely, Victor. Name your price. Your daughter humiliated me. There is no price for that except blood. Victor's voice was cold. But perhaps, if you help me find where Kong is hiding her, I might be merciful. I don't know where she is. That's the truth. A long pause. Then, I believe you. You're weak, Christopher, but you're not a liar. Footsteps. I need to take a call. Wait here. The moment Victor left, Christopher moved fast. Briefcase open. The sophisticated copier, disguised as a tablet, positioned over the safe documents. Come on, Zanelle whispered. 18 minutes, Min-jun counted down. 15. 12. He's coming back, Yong-ho warned. Victor's heading back to the study. Papa's not done, Zanelle's voice rose in panic. Dae-young spoke into the comms, Christopher, you have 60 seconds. Finish and get out. They watched her father's hands move in a blur. Snapping photos. Copying files. And then. The study door opened. Christopher stood calmly by the window, briefcase closed, looking for all the world like a worried father lost in thought. Sorry about that, Victor said. Business. I understand. The rest of the meeting passed without incident. Christopher left 20 minutes later, and when he climbed into the van with them, Zanelle threw her arms around him. You did it, she breathed. Papa, you were amazing. Christopher looked at Dae-young. Keep her safe. Promise me. With my life, Dae-young said, and the weight of that promise hung in the air like a vow. The files were everything they needed. Evidence of Victor embezzling from family accounts. Proof of deals made without his uncle's approval. Communications with rival gangs that looked suspiciously like betrayal. Dae-young leaked them carefully, a document here, a recorded conversation there. Not to law enforcement, but to Victor's own family. Within a week, the Nandi family was tearing itself apart. Victor's uncles called for a family meeting. Accusations flew. Alliances fractured. And while they were distracted, destroying each other, Dae-young made his move. He absorbed 3 of their distribution networks. Flipped 4 of their best men. Took over 2 territories that the Nandis could no longer defend. By the time Victor realized what was happening, it was too late. His own family voted to remove him from power. Exile him back to Nigeria. Strip him of everything. The night they got the news, Dae-young opened a bottle of champagne in his penthouse. To the bravest woman I know, he toasted, eyes on Zanelle. Who walked into my club with a gun and changed everything. To the man who smiled for me, Zanelle countered. And hasn't stopped since. It was true. Over the past weeks, she'd seen Dae-young transform. The smiles came easier now. The laughter was real. The ice was melting, and underneath was a man who was brilliant, passionate, and devastatingly in love with her. I need to tell you something, Dae-young said, suddenly serious. He set down his glass and took her hands. This life I live, it's dangerous. People want me dead. There will always be another Victor, another threat. If you stay with me, you'll never be completely safe. I know. You could leave. I'd set you up anywhere in the world. New identity, money, protection. You could have the normal life you deserved. Zanelle cupped his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. I didn't run from one life just to run from another. I want this. The danger, the chaos, the empire. But most of all. She kissed him softly. I want you. The real you. Not the ghost. The man who reads poetry and calls his mother and smiles when he thinks no one's watching. I love you, Dae-young said, and the words sounded like they were ripped from his soul. I've loved you since that first night. You terrify me, Zanel Amadi. You make me weak. You make me strong, she countered. We balance each other. Then stay. Be my partner. Not just in business, but in everything. His eyes burned into hers. Marry me. Not for an arrangement, not for business. But because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Zanel laughed, tears streaming down her face. I literally ran from a wedding 3 months ago. This is different. How? Because I'm not asking you to be my prisoner. I'm asking you to be my queen. To rule this empire beside me. To be my equal in everything. He pulled out a ring, a stunning black diamond surrounded by smaller white stones. I had this made for you. Black and white. Us. Different worlds coming together. Yes, Zanel whispered. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. The kiss was sweet, deep, full of promise. And when they made love that night, it wasn't desperate or claiming. It was reverent. A worship of skin and soul, two people choosing each other against all odds. 6 months later. The wedding was nothing like the nightmare Zanel had run from. It was small, intimate, just family and trusted friends. Mrs. Choi cried through the whole ceremony. Christopher Amadi walked his daughter down the aisle with pride written all over his face. And Dae-young's mother, who'd flown in from Korea, welcomed Zanel with open arms and a whispered, "Thank you for bringing my son back to life." They married in the penthouse at sunset, Atlanta spread out beneath them like a kingdom of light. Zanel wore a dress of her own choosing, sleek, powerful, with intricate African-inspired beading. Dae-young couldn't stop smiling. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said. The kiss was met with cheers and applause. And as they turned to face their new family, Zanel felt it, the absolute rightness of this moment. She'd run from one arranged marriage and found herself in another kind of arrangement entirely. A partnership built on respect, trust, and a love so fierce it had melted a ghost back into a man. "Ready to rule the underworld, Mrs. Kang?" Dae-young whispered in her ear. Zanel smiled, that same fierce smile she'd worn the night she burst into his club. "I was born ready." Together, they stepped into their future, dangerous, uncertain, and absolutely perfect. And that's how you go from runaway bride to mafia queen. Did this story give you all the feels, or what? Listen, if you loved this journey as much as I loved writing it, I need you to do 3 things. First, smash that like button. Second, subscribe and hit the notification bell because I've got more stories coming that are going to blow your mind. And third, this is important, leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, for being part of this community, and for loving these characters as much as I do. Until next time, keep believing in love that's worth fighting for, even when the whole world says it's impossible. I'll see you in the next story.